Welcome to Confessions by Banana Ketchup. The dark spot in the alley. I've already made a comment on this, but this one sticks with me deeply. Yet I didn't go into full detail, so here I go. About 10 to 12 years ago, I and my closest friends were staying the night at one of their houses. This is an old Air Force base that had many suicides and other things happen, to which we still know not much of, even though it has come to be apparent with things we went through. One of my friends is also into supernatural and occult and meditation and in tune with nature. We all were sitting in the living room, TV off, when we heard a noise at the back glass door that so happens to slide, like so many do. We all moved cautiously over to check it out since robbers or whatnot. One of my friends pulled the curtains away and we all freeze. For what seems like an eternity, we sat there in disbelief, and finally the question came, "Do you all see what I'm looking at right now?" To which we all asked, "What exactly?" The girl with her face cut up. "Yeah, I see her," one by one answers. The friend lifting the curtain cuts back and asks what we should do. I said we don't have many resources to help out, but let's see if she's still there. We pulled the curtains back once more to see that she's moved towards the back end of the patio, then slowly turns towards us, but not moving. We all freaked out a little, or a lot rather, and tried to relax on the living room furniture discussing this situation. Next thing we know, a huge noise comes from the front door, and we gather in a stupid formation, from sitting to half sitting, ready to take on whatever was coming for us. The friend's house we were staying at comes through the front door with a giant dog that comes to lick our faces while his mother looks at us like we are crazy. After this dog met us, he stood still, just like we had sooner, and jumped towards the back door. We knew what he was going at. He didn't bark, but only growled and moved from side to side of the door, like he was ready to pounce on something. The mother scolded him a little while putting a leash on, and once again leaving after grabbing a few of her things. Once she left, everything felt a little more normal. It was always a little weird, especially at night, growing up at this place. It was a full moon, so I and my other intuitive friend decided to kind of meditate on the patio to see if we could feel or find what was going on. No one felt or saw the girl since the dog showed up, so we felt it was a good time for it. As we are doing our thing, I hear scurrying behind this back fence that sounds like a bunny. Makes sense since we live outside the city and have much wildlife around. Then I hear it again, but this time I see the shadow of it moving through the fence. I didn't say anything since my friend seems to have been alright and not heard anything. I hear and see it move a few more times, and then my friend asked me suddenly, "Did you hear that?" "Yeah, I have for a while now. Just didn't think you did or want to distract you. I was doing the same thing. You see that dark spot on the other side of the fence?" Sure enough, there was a dark spot that just zipped away once we got up to investigate. So we both noticed something was around, but didn't want to tell each other for some reason. Yet, when we both came to the conclusion that there was definitely something, we both looked over the fence into the alley. Again, this was a night of a full moon, so we can see a good bit, especially being outside for the last 20-30 minutes. In the middle of the alley, we saw nothing as is. We saw a big blacker than black spot. It had a center of more than black, and it had a shadow of sorts that radiated off of it. Frozen for a second, we turned to each other asking if we are seeing the same thing. Sure enough, that spot is there, surrounded by moonlight and other things, with nothing to give that kind of shadow. My friend asked me to keep an eye on it, while he grabs a garden trowel. It moves a little, and I see a very little shape to it. It's still a black mass at this point. When my friend returns, he makes the note of it moving a little and asks if it changed shape. I tell him it had moved, but there was a funky shape but returned to a black mass. Suddenly, my friend throws the garden trowel at it and it darts away. I've never seen something move so fast in my life, and it zigzagged along the way from what I could tell. Next thing we know, all of the dogs in the alley are going absolutely crazy. That's when we knew we weren't the only ones to see or feel this. We quickly ran inside after about 10 seconds of listening to angry dogs and the scurrying of whatever it was. We returned to retrieve the trowel to find it sticking headfirst in the ground, but nothing was on it. Then we presumed that whatever it was not of the normal world we know. It fleeing as it did though made us believe it was something paranormal and that we should find it again. Never have I seen that again, but I would like to, just so I could find out what it was. However, I've never seen such a dark mass in the midst of a full moon, especially with nothing to give it any shadow. It's a black mass I have seen before though, but this time it was out in the open, and don't think it was related to what I saw before. We didn't sleep that night, and the next morning, when we went exploring, we kept hearing voices following us. We all went to our own places, but still struck with some kind of awe and, for me and that one friend, a kind of inspiration to find out what that was we saw that night. We hope to find out, but it may remain a mystery for a while. Until then, we shall discover other things and explore other places. Gotta have a buddy system. Thank you, Heyutl, the author. Shadow beings and prophetic dreams. After getting some advice from one of my closest friends, I decided I should post some of my paranormal experiences here. These are 4 that I can think of currently, but there are a lot more encounters, experiences. I'll post them later if needed. This may be a long post, so I apologize in advance. For some backstory, I'm Native American, if that helps. When I was a baby, around 1 or 2, my mother was told by my very spiritual great-grandfather that I was going to be something different, someone that isn't normal, that I was a dreamer, and that being a dreamer comes with consequences. He then told my mother that no matter how many times my mom saged the house, the people will always stay. I had no idea what it meant, but now I think I do. To protect my little sister's identity, I will be calling her Aunt. She's 3 years old. Instance 1, July 2020. I had stayed up all night and had fallen asleep at around 4 p.m.ish. I woke up at 11 p.m. from a realistic nightmare of my mom getting in a car crash with my little sister. I woke up crying as I felt as if it happened. Once I realized it was a nightmare, I decided to call with my friends. I called with 2 of my friends, M and T, to calm myself down. I was talking to them for a while until around 1 a.m. My mom comes home at 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. as she works late into the night. I realized that she still wasn't home and that I was home alone. I started getting pretty nervous, but then my dad called me and asked if my mom called me, which she hadn't. He said he was gonna call my aunt, which never happens. At this point, around 2 a.m., I was getting really anxious and fidgety, and it showed. I told my friends I was really nervous and told them what happened in my dream. Suddenly, I heard someone knock briefly on my front door, so I got up to go check who it could be. I live in a small neighborhood filled with mainly relatives, so it wouldn't be too surprising if someone was trying to come over at 2 a.m. But when I looked out the window, nobody was there. My dad then called me and told me my mom had gotten in a car crash and he was gonna come pick me up. I asked him where, but when he was about to say it, I answered it for him. He didn't ask how I knew, but I told him anyways. I asked him if it was just my mother or my mother and little sister. He said it was just my mom and my little sister was with my aunt. To this day, I still don't know who knocked at my front door and what could have happened if I had answered. Instance 2, sometime in August. My little sister and I were in my room, sitting on my bed at around 3 p.m. She was facing me and I was facing the door. I was on my laptop and she was on her little tablet. We were home alone. Suddenly, I seen something run in my mom's room. It was roughly the size of a small child. My mom's lamp was on, so I seen its shadow reflect on the floor. I looked up immediately and Aunt turned around immediately at the same time. We both stared in the same place by my mom's bed. It was so weird. Even though Aunt's back was literally facing the shadowy figure, she knew something was there. We both stared at the area for a bit, then looked at each other. She looked at me like she knew something, but she stayed quiet. Instance 3, September 2020. I was sleeping on my mom's bed in her room at around 2 p.m. As I was sleeping, I had the sudden urge to wake up and look at the door. I woke up and looked at the doorway, and I seen a black thing, most likely a shadow, that was like around the height of ant, peeking in to stare at me from the side of the doorway. I thought it was ant, mainly because I presumed that my family was home. I closed my eyes again, but my phone went off, and my mom had texted me that she was on her way back home with Aunt and was asking what I wanted to eat. I messaged her back. Then that's when I realized that my little sister wasn't home. I started to panic and I called my mom, telling her what I had seen at the doorway. She told me to grab her Bible by her bed and to close the door quickly. I grabbed the Bible and closed the door, but when I did, I felt this overwhelmingly wave of sadness, despair, grief rush over me. I struggled to walk to the bed and just ended up throwing myself onto it. I started crying, but I didn't feel sad. I was crying, but it's like I wasn't crying my own tears, like something was forcing me to cry and giving me their feelings. Instance 4, September 2020. It was around 6 p.m. when I was walking into my mom's room and something grabbed my right wrist. Aunt was sitting on my mom's bed on her tablet and my mom was in the bathroom. It felt like a child's hand was tugging on my wrist. I turned around and looked down, but nothing was there. I swear on my life, I felt something was there. Afterwards, I walked into my mom's room, which was now cold, and sat on her bed, waiting for her to come out of the bathroom. I told her what I felt and she asked to see it. I showed it to her and my wrist was very red, like something that gripped it and didn't let go for a while. I would like to hear your thoughts on what these all could mean. I just want to know how to protect my family and make sure that if there is something following me, that it won't be able to hurt my family. Thank you for reading. Thank you, notpizzaboy, the author. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you already haven't, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss new episodes. See you again soon, and until then, please, be safe.